Hello class, welcome to Lab 1 Learning Markdown. First, let's do a little overview of what the lab entails, and then we'll go question by question. First, let's go over the resources that we're gonna need for this lab. First of all, the presentation that's gonna teach us Markdown, then the exercise files that we're gonna need, a cheat sheet for Markdown that you're gonna save in the end. This is gonna be very useful to you because syntax is one of those things that you learn as you go. And then Markdown officials documentation and VS Code's download link. The learning outcomes of these labs are as follows: how to use VS Code for writing text, how to use Markdown, how to create a GitHub repository, and how to upload files to a GitHub repository using the web interface. Now, for every question that you have here, you have a practice that is going to help you practice the particular topic that is covered. I broke down this lab into essentially 6 questions and a challenge question. So question 1, for example, is going to teach you what is Markdown. Question number 2 is going to teach you how to deal with headings and paragraphs. Question 3, how to work with lists. 4, how to do call formatting, and so on. When you finish question 1 all the way to question 6, you have sufficient knowledge of Markdown to actually tackle the challenge question, where you're going to take plain text and you're going to create a PDF file using Markdown syntax. More on that when we get to the challenge question. Now, this video serves as a self-help aid. So if you get stuck at any point during any question, you can just come to a particular section in the video, see me solve the problem, and then continue on your own. There are going to be timestamps for every question in the video. Now, the way that I will create the timestamp is as follows. When we go to question number 1, I'm going to explain the particular topic, provide examples on the topic that we're talking about, and then I will solve the practice that is in the presentation. I'm going to take question 1 as an example now. So the first thing that we need to do is read the slides 1 to 6. So what I will do is I would explain slides 1 to 6, and then we're going to complete practice number 1. Practice 1 is split in two. There are 2 sets of instructions for each practice. There is a short set, which is in the presentation, is more straight to the point without being very verbose. And then there is the ones written over here in this document. These are more detailed. Now, which of these 2 sets should you follow? Regardless of the 2, they are going to land you in the same place. They solve the same problem. The difference here is that if you need more help understanding what instructions are actually asking of you, then you should actually follow the ones in the document here. The other one in the presentation assume that you have certain knowledge about computing and that you do not need explicit instructions when getting something done. Here is an example of what I mean. In the presentation, you might find an instruction that says something like download and unzip this file. In that instruction, I am assuming that you understand what unzipping a file means and that you understand how you can download this file. Whereas here in the documentation, I will tell you exactly how you do it. For instance, I could say something like open your favorite web browser, go to this URL. Once the file is downloaded, right click on the file, extract the file, or copy the contents of the file into XYZ folder. Both instructions are the same, but again, the difference is one is more verbose for those who need a little help, and the other one is, well, more straight to the point for people that, are a little bit ahead of the game. Um, I believe that's about it. Yep. With that said, let's get started with question number 1. For question 1, we're going to learn what is Markdown, and then we're going to install VS Code and some extensions. So let's go ahead and read the slides 1 through 6 of the presentation. So why are we learning Markdown in this class? We're learning Markdown because we're going to be working primarily in a virtual machine. Inside a virtual machine, We need an environment that consumes the least amount of resources as possible. To do your assignments, you need some sort of editor so that you can type text, work with files, put pictures in there when needed, and so on. You are normally accustomed to working with a word processor, such as Microsoft Word or Google Docs if you come from, a traditional American high school. These applications are too heavy to run in a virtual machine successfully, or to run them in a way that is not going to make the virtual machine extremely slow. We want a smooth environment that we can operate with. A text editor consumes significantly much less resources than a document editor. Markdown works with a very bad text editor because it works with plain text. Working with plain text is significantly faster, although might be a little outdated. Markdown is very easy to learn, and it is the de facto industry standard for writing documentation. It is used in a lot of places, and because it's so simple to learn, there is no reason why you shouldn't learn it. Markdown documents can easily be converted to PDF, Word documents, ODT documents, and even PowerPoint presentations. Markdown documents can also be converted into HTML files that can be served as web pages. Essentially, as an IT professional, computer science student, or even web developer, the more tools that you know, the more valuable you are. And this is one of the more tools that you are going to get the opportunity to learn. Now, what is Markdown exactly? Markdown is a markup language that lets you write plain text with very little formatting. Markdown is very, very versatile. It was invented in 2004 and it is found in a lot of places because it is so universal. Markdown is essentially an extension to plain text in a way. Plain text doesn't allow you to do any formatting at all. Markdown adds some of that formatting in. One of the words that I mentioned recently was markup language. There are other markup languages in the market. As a matter of fact, HTML, the language used for making websites, for making the content of a website, is a markup language. A markup language is a text encoding system which specifies how a particular document is supposed to be structured. Markdown is essentially a standard, and there are many implementations of Markdown. The one that we will be focusing on is GitHub Flavor Markdown. So what can you do with Markdown? Well, I already mentioned that you can add formatting to plain text. What does that mean exactly? Well, let's open Notepad real quick. Notepad is the default text editor for Windows. Everything you type here is, well, text. Like, for example, everything that I typed over here. This is just text. You cannot put pictures in this file. You cannot put links in this file. There is something that looks like a link, but in reality, that's not a hyperlink. You cannot click on it and go to a website. That is just text because that's what plain text is. As a matter of fact, the size of this file is equivalent to the number of characters in the file itself. Now, Markdown can be converted into HTML, PDF, docx, PowerPoint, as long as the particular application that you're using allows you to do so. Markdown is used in GitHub, GitLab, is used in static site generators. Those are type of sites where the author of the site just focuses on creating the document, and then a particular application, in this case Jekyll or Hugo, takes that Markdown file and converts it into a fully functional web page. A lot of note-taking applications use Markdown because one of the main usages of Markdown, aside from creating documentation, is also taking notes. I use Markdown for taking notes as well. So, what do I need to learn Markdown? Well, quite simple. A text editor. That's it. A text editor and a file whose file extension is .md or .markdown. What do I need to convert the files then? An application that can take Markdown file and convert it into something else. VS Code is the application that we are going to be using because VS Code has a lot of plugins, a lot of extensions that make working with Markdown files a breeze, while still remaining relatively fast inside a virtual machine. So, what type of formatting does Markdown support? Well, Markdown support headings, paragraphs, links, images, tables, and code formatting. With that said, let's go ahead and work on practice number 1. I'm going to go back to my instructions. And here we need to install VS Code. So to install VS Code, simply download the installer from the link provided over here. You can also just Google VS Code. If you're on Windows or a Mac, this button over here is going to give you the file that you need. On a Mac, it's going to say download for Mac. On Windows, it's going to say download for Windows. Now, there is a caveat for those of you who are in Mac that I need to say. Let me just save this. And I'm going to wait until finish. Yeah, it's just 12 seconds. I'm going to go back here. If you're on a Mac, there are two types of Apple computers in the market right now. The ones with Intel CPUs and the one with Apple Silicon or M series CPUs. If you click on other platforms here, you're going to notice that Microsoft offers both options, one for Intel chips and one for Apple Silicon. I recommend you that you buy the one that matches your processor architecture. So go and take a look at about my system menu in Mac and see what CPU your computer has and download the appropriate installer. I'm just gonna run the setup. But I believe that I already installed it anyway. Click on next, click on next, click on install. While this is installing, let me continue with the instructions. Complete practice 1. If you are on Windows 10 or 11, you need to enable file extensions. This is important because otherwise a lot of the features that we're going to use are not going to work. I am currently in Windows 11, and to do so, just open a file manager, click on View, scroll down to Show, and then make sure the file name extensions is enabled. If you're on Windows 10, there is a guide over here that I linked to you that you can use to learn how to enable file extensions on Windows. If you're on a Mac, you do not need to do this. This is already done for you. Now let's set up our practice folder. So the practice folder is going to be a lab 1 folder inside documents. But before we do that, I need you to download this zip file. You're going to unzip or decompress the file in your documents folder. So I'm going to open my file manager. I'm going to go to downloads. And here, I'm going to open this with Explorer. And I'm going to drag and drop this lab 1 file into the documents folder. Okay, hold on, click on no. Let me delete what I have here because I already had it from a previous attempt to this video. Good. And let's drag and drop it. I'm going to do that one more time. Open the lab1.zip file. You can just double click or you can right click and click on open with File Explorer, either or. Then click and drag lab1 into documents. There are other ways in which you can unzip this file too. The goal here is to have a lab1 folder inside documents. VS Code has been installed. I'm gonna launch VS Code and finish. For step number 3, we're gonna open the folder in VS Code. This here is very important. Always open a folder in VS Code. In VS Code, we work with projects. We don't work with individual files. So you always want to open a folder that becomes your workspace. So we're going to click on File, Open Folder, click on Lab 1, and click on Select Folder. Let's take a look at the interface of VS Code real quick. This is my editor area. The files that I open are going to appear over here. This is my file manager, this icon over here. Notice that I have the lab 1 folder open, and these are the folders inside lab 1. This here is for installing extensions. These are the two menus that we're going to be constantly using throughout the semester. What you're going to do is that you're going to install the extensions that you see on the screen here. So let's go back to the instructions and let's just search them one by one. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here in the search window. Click on the extension, make sure that it's by the same author, and then click on install. Please make sure you install all of the other extensions as well. This extension is not mandatory. It is optional because it's just a simple spell checker for your code. You can skip it if you want. I will show you the other extensions as well. This is Markdown PDF by Zane. Markdown Preview Enhance, and PDF Preview. And finally, the code spell checker, just in case you want to install it. Okay, this now is part 2 of practice 1. We're going to test and play around with these extensions. We have Markdown all-in-one. This is going to do just general formatting for our Markdown document, which is cool. A spell checker, PDF, and then Preview Enhance. Now, let's see how they work. Let's go to question 1. Here you're going to find a file called ubuntu.md. This is a Markdown file. The first one that I'm going to show you is the Preview Enhance. Right click on an empty area, for example over here of the editor, and you're gonna get this menu. Here are all of the Markdown applications that we just installed. Click on Markdown Preview Enhance, which is gonna open a panel on the side showing you a preview of your Markdown document. Pretty nice, right? Now let's learn how to convert files to PDF. Right click again to open the menu, and then click on Markdown PDF. This is going to convert the file to HTML, and then it's going to use Chromium to convert the HTML to PDF. Once it is done, you're going to see a PDF file appear in the same folder as your Markdown file is located. If you click on it, it's going to reveal a PDF file. This is able to preview here because we installed PDF Preview for VS Code. To get started with question number 2, let's go and take a look at slides 9 and 10 of the presentation. So first, let's talk about headings. What are headings? Well, headings are used to guide readers through a document. They allow us to organize a document in a logical way. For example, if you're writing a document on the biology of cats and you want to have an introduction, and then you want to have a section of different breeds, and then you want to have a section that describes their reproduction cycles and so on, you might want to label those sections so that your readers know what they are looking at, what the section is about. That's what headings are used for. Markdown has 7 levels of headings, 1 through 7, where heading 1 will be the highest font size, and then 7 being the smallest. After heading number 7, they are all the same size. Here is an example of a document here on the site that uses multiple levels of headings. Heading 1 is the title of the document. What is Ubuntu? Heading 2 here is the title, or not the title, sorry, it is the label for a particular section, the section called Ubuntu Release Cycle. And then within this section, we have a heading number 3. Notice that heading 3 is smaller than 2, and then this is a subsection of the release cycle. Then you have also another heading number 2, which tells the reader that a new section of the document is starting. Now that we know what headings are, how do we format headings in Markdown? Well, quite simple. You put a pound sign at the beginning and a space. And the entire line now becomes heading 1. If you want to do a heading 2, 2 pound signs. Heading 3, 3 pound signs. Heading 4, and so on. Let's practice it. So I'm going to go to VS Code, And over here in my question 2 folder, I'm gonna create a file called play.md. This is gonna be sort of like my playground. So we're gonna call this is a heading 1. This is a heading 2. This is a heading 3. Heading 3. This is a heading 4, right? Now, if I want this to become heading 1, all I have to do is put a pound sign at the beginning and a space. And notice how the font changes. It now looks like heading 1. I'm just gonna zoom in here so that you can see better. And I'm gonna open the preview so that you can see the difference. See heading 1? Now let's turn this into heading number 2. Again, all I have to do is put 2 pound signs and a space. It's very important to put that space because look what happens when I don't provide the space. Nothing happens. It doesn't render. Heading 3 and finally heading number 4. Make sense? I hope it does. And that's it. That's how you work with headings in Markdown. Let's take a look at paragraphs. Now, to type a paragraph in Markdown, all you have to do is just type. Just type. That's it. Start typing. Start writing. So if I want here to type a paragraph, I can say this is a paragraph. Paragraph. I like potatoes and I do not want to keep writing. This is a paragraph. If I want to put another paragraph, I leave a blank space in between and I start typing. This is another paragraph. I like rice. I do not want to keep writing. And that's it. Let's try and copy pasting some stuff from the web. So let me just go to Wikipedia here. Why not? Wikipedia, Debian. You can look for whatever you want. The point here is we want to create some text. So I'm just going to copy this and I want to paste it over here. Look what happened. It didn't create another paragraph because there is no blank space. There is no empty line in between. So an empty line in between. We have 3 paragraphs here. Let me zoom out a little bit. And that's it. That's a paragraph. Now, paragraph supports some form of formatting. For example, sometimes you want to bold a particular sentence or a particular word. Sometimes you want to italize that particular word or sentence, right? How do we do it? Quite easy. So if you want to use bold, you start with 2 asterisks or stars, no spaces in between, and then you finish with another set of asterisks when you're done bolding. If you want to do italics, then you do a single asterisk. And if you want to do a strike through, you do 2 tilde characters. Let's take a look at that. So first, I'm going to bold the word Debian. So if I want to bold the word Debian, I put 2 stars at the beginning, and then I close it with 2 more stars. And now it's bold. If I want to bold an entire sentence, I do the same thing. Just 2 stars at the beginning, and then 2 stars in the end. And the whole sentence is bold. For italics, single star. 1. There you go. And I can combine them. I can do both formatting if I do 3 stars. 1, 2, bold, italics. Sorry. Bold, italics. Does that make sense? As simple as that. Okay, so now that we've seen these two, let's take a look at a strike through. We're not going to be using a strike through anyway, but I'm just going to show it. So if I want to strike through this part here, which says the Debian project, I can do 2 tilde characters, which is the character below the escape key. I need to use the shift key for that. And then 2 tilde characters again. And it's going to just draw a line in between. We're not going to use that formatting. At least in all the time teaching this class, I haven't had a use for that. But again, it's good to know that is there. With that said, Here is an example using all of the things that we covered before. You have here a heading, and you have an empty line, and a paragraph here with some formatting. Now, let's work with practice number 2. Again, I'm going to be referencing the instructions here that are more complete, but of course, you can do these ones as well. Rename a file. So how do we rename a file in VS Code? Well, quite simple. I'm just going to save and quit this file, quit this, zoom out. By the way, you can zoom in and out using the control key and the plus or minus keys in your keyboard. Question 2, I'm just gonna delete this file because I don't need it anymore. And I need to rename this file. So I'm gonna right click on the file and I'm gonna click on rename. I need to change the extension from Markdown from TXT to Markdown MD. And that's it. Let me zoom in over here so you see what I mean. So from TXT to period MD. Now we're gonna format line 1 as heading 1. Line 1 as heading 1. Just gonna close this Ubuntu file. Line 1 as heading 1. Boom. Line 2 as heading 2. This would be line 2 over here. Well, I should have said line 3, not line 2, so I need to fix that later. And then we're gonna do line 10 as heading 3. So let's move on to line 10. Yep, line 10 as heading number 3. Boom. Now let's practice bold. Make every instance of the word Markdown bold, except when it appears in a heading. Okay, now I'm gonna take the opportunity. Obviously, you can do it manually. You can just click on this and you can see that Markdown appears in a lot of places, right? But I'm gonna take this opportunity to show you how you can bulk replace a word in VS Code. Press the Control F key combination in your keyboard. Again, Control and F as in family. And then click on this arrow over here. I'm just going to zoom in a little so you can see better. Click on this arrow at the beginning. Now we can replace this word for another word over here. So we need to do bold. So we're going to do 2 asterisk, Markdown, and then 2 asterisks. This is going to replace one instance of the word. This is going to replace that word for the one that you're replacing to in the entire document. And this is what we want to do. So click on this button over here. And notice that it changed every instance of the word Markdown to bold. Now, there is something particular in the instruction. It says that we need to make it bold everywhere except when it is in a heading. So here we need to fix it. We don't want this. We don't want this. And here's another heading. We do not want this. And done. Let's play around with italic. Format the following the phrases using italic. Again, single asterisk. Lightweight markup language. And of course, you can start reading over here. Okay, where does it say lightweight, lightweight, lightweight? But no, we just learned how to find. So why don't we just find where lightweight is? It says lightweight markup language. I'm just going to copy this. And boom, I found the string. So I need to put a star here at the beginning and a star in the end. Boom. By John Gruber in 2004. So let's copy this and let's also find it. We found it. Again, star in the end, star at the beginning. And then we have this one over here. start at the beginning, and start in the end. Save your file. And now it comes the question, how do I save? Click on File and click on Save. Or you can do Control S. I prefer to do Control S because moving the mouse to File and Control S has too much work. So Control S. Right click and then preview your document. I want to call your attention to the button over here. Notice that this is italic, but only a single word is bold, which is also pretty cool. When I close this, let's go back to our instructions. Let's do both bold and italic. And the ones that we want to do this to is websites, document notes, blah, 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 blah. And we're going to do the same thing. Copy, find it, good. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this is the last one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Save your document, again, Control S or File, Save. Step 6, preview the file. Right click and preview. And here is our document properly formatted. Let's move along to question number 3. For question number 3, we're going to be working with lists. So let's take a look at slides 14 to 15. Here we go. Working with lists. Slides 13. Oh, where are you? Well, it starts in, yep, 14 to 15. These are block quotes. Oh, interesting. I have them flipped. Well, I'm not going to fix this one. We can just take care of that really quickly. A block quote is exactly what it sounds like. It is a block of text that's formatted as a quote. To do a block quote, you just start with a greater than sign and a space, and the entire line is formatted as a block quote. You can look at a preview over here of how that looks like. Let's go to the meat of the matter, which is working with lists. There are 3 types of lists. The 2 main types are order and unordered list. An order list is a list of items where the order of the items actually have a meaning. They go from more important to least important. An unordered list is a list where the order of items don't have really importance, right? So think of top 5, but the top 5 here will be an order list because you go from more important to least important or vice versa, but there is a meaning to the numbering. In an unordered list, it would be something like list of my favorite names for pets. Doesn't really matter the order because they're all my favorite names for pets, but again, they are still a list. The third kind is an indented, bulleted, or number list. It is a list within a list. How do we do this in Markdown? It is super easy. I will show you. Let's go and talk about order list first. You start with a number and a period, and that's it. For instance, I'm gonna go and let me just close this, and I'm gonna close this, zoom out a little bit, and I'm gonna go to question number 3, and in the question number 3 folder, I'm gonna create a file. Actually, I'm just gonna use the ignore me.md file. Why not? Right? Just gonna use this file. This is just as a playground to demonstrate. Let's say I wanna create a list of pets, right? Actually not a list of pets, for a to-do list, a list of things that I need to do. So I'm gonna call this, let me just give it a heading 1, to-do list for today. Item number 1, clean the room. So I do 1 period space, and notice how the color changed immediately. It recognized that I'm creating a numbered list. Clean the house. Item number 2, I press enter at the end of the line, and it immediately added the number 2 because it understands that I am creating a numbered list. Okay, so do the dishes. Number 3, do exercise. Go visit family. Family. Watch Netflix show. And so on. And that's it. That right there is a numbered or ordered list. VS Code automatically understands that I'm creating a list. Now you might be wondering, but how do I get out of this numbering thingy? Because, well, what happened there? Well, I pressed enter. But because I didn't type anything after the number, VS Code understood that I am ending my numbered list. And that's it. Now, how do we do an unordered list? Well, it's actually quite simple. So let's create a grocery list or a shopping list. So go shopping list. And this is going to be a heading 2, just because. No reason whatsoever, just because. To start a bulleted list, we can use any of the following characters. You can use a star and a space. And that creates a bulleted list immediately. So I can do tomatoes, potatoes, onions, and meat, right? And that's it. I can also use the plus sign. And I can say carrots, peas. I can also use the minus sign. And I can say snacks, Coke, Pepsi, water. Now, you might be wondering, but then professor, what is the difference? Is there a preference? Well, use whichever of them you want. I like to use stars, or you can use plus, or you can use minus. Either way is fine. When you preview this file, or when you convert this file to PDF, they are all going to become bullet items. It's just a bullet, because that's all that's supported. They are all going to become bulleted anyways. So you get to pick which of these 3 characters you want to use for your bulleted list. And you can mix and match them too. For example, you can mix and match them, no problem. And this still works. Okay, I don't recommend mix and matching them because, then you're not going to get the automatic bulleted listing that VS Code does, which, it's inconvenient. Okie dokie. With that said, let's go ahead and go and work on practice number 3. And as I did before, I'm going to go with the other instructions that are more verbose than these ones. So, practice number 3. Copy your previous work. So, just going to save this, close it, zoom out a little bit. And the previous work is question 2, homework.md. So, I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on copy. I'm going to click on the folder where I want to paste this in, and I'm going to right click and click on paste. Control C and Control V also works within this application. Then we're going to create a bulleted list. In the homework.md file, format lines 12 to 20 as a bulleted list. So lines, let me just make sure I'm working with the right thing. Lines 12 to 20. So let me locate line 12 all the way to 20. Okay, so this is a bulleted list. So just have to put a star at the beginning and a space. Start at the beginning and a space. Start at the beginning and a space. I start at the beginning and a space. Next, add a heading in a numbered list. So we're gonna add a heading number 2, and I'm just gonna copy this because, if I can copy, I'm gonna copy. And we're gonna put it below the bulleted list. So right over here. I feel like I missed something. Oh, remove any empty lines. Yep, I did. Let's get rid of these empty lines. Let's get rid of these empty lines. And let's get rid of these empty lines. Done. This I'm gonna leave. And here is the numbered list that I am adding. So I'm just gonna copy this and just click on the icon over here on our website. And I'm gonna paste it right over here. I'm gonna set this one as the first item, and then from these other two, I can manually put 2 and then 3, of course, or I can delete the space, press enter, delete, and press enter, and it will automatically be numbered as well. Either or is fine. Add a second heading and a nested bulleted list. So we're gonna copy this, and then we're gonna copy this. The goal is to create a nested bulleted list like this. So let's paste this. And now all I have to do is do star and a space. So delete, enter, and then press the tab key on your keyboard. Again, tab key, that is on top of the caps lock or below the tilde character in your keyboard. Just a tab, delete, enter, and notice that it keeps the indentation. Now this is Windows. I'm gonna delete and enter, but Windows here is not part of that indent. Because if we go and look at the preview here, Windows is its own list. It's part of the main list. So how do we fix this? Well, simply delete. And that's it. Just backspace once and it takes you to the beginning of the bulleted list. Okay? Delete, enter, and then tab. Delete, sorry, backspace, not delete, backspace, enter, and then tab. Well, you don't need to tab here because it keeps the indentation. We're gonna do the same thing with macOS that we did with Windows. So delete, sorry, backspace, I keep saying delete. Press enter. Now backspace again to go back to the beginning of the bulleted items. Tab, boom, tab. And that's it. Preview the file. Right click and preview. And here are our bulleted list and our number list and the previous list that we make. I'm gonna close this and I'm gonna save my file. So file and save all. I want to show you this here as well. If you're working with multiple files and you wanna save them all, you don't wanna go file by file, that's pretty cool as well. Save all. And that's it. With that said, let's move along to question number 4, code formatting. For question number 4, we're gonna be working with code formatting. So here we need to read the slides 18 to 19 of the presentation. So slide 18, there are two types of code formattings that are supported by Markdown. One is called code block. So a code block is exactly what the name implies. It's a block of text that has been formatted to look like code. Inline code formatting, it is a line of text within a paragraph or a standalone line that has been formatted to look like code. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? What do you mean by code formatting? Well, let me give you an example from our website so you see what I mean. If you go here to lab number 2, installing Debian, which is going to be for the week after this one, there are some parts here, specifically here, where I need to show you some code that you need to run. Boom. This over here is a code block. It is apparent to the user, the reader of this guide, that this is code because the font and style is very different from the instruction. This is a single line code block. Here is a multi-line code block. There are also instances where you want to also use inline because you're referring to a single word or a set of words within a paragraph. Like when you are explaining a particular keyword when you're writing notes about a programming language. For example, I'm pretty sure that I have some inline formatting here. Yep, right here. For example, here, I want the word yes to be apparent to the user that is going to be part of a command. Okay, so now that you see an example of code block, let's see how we do it in Markdown. How do we add this to our document? I'm just going to close this here. For that, we're going to use the backtick key of the keyboard. The backtick key is the key that is located below the escape key on the keyboard. Now, let me see if I can find a standard US QWERTY keyboard so that I show you which key I'm talking about. Ooh, I like this one. This is my keyboard. Keychron for the win. Yay. See, okay, this is fine. Opening a new tab, and yeah, this one is too. This one is fine too. Okay, this here is the backtick. This one over here. See, that is right below the escape key. Oh, that's not a good definition. That's actually pretty bad. Oh, nope. It has to be Shutterstock, huh? When you're looking for something, you never find it, isn't it? Opening a new tab. I just want a good definition. That's also bad. This is the tilde, and this here is the backtick. The backtick doesn't require the shift key. If you just type it, if you just press it, it's gonna look like this. Boom. And we need triplets or single to work with this. Now let's go to our working environment right over here, to our playground. Let's go to question number 4. And in question number 4, I'm going to create a file called play.md to demonstrate how this works. So let's say, for example, that I am taking notes on, I don't know, Ruby, the Ruby programming language, for example. And I want to explain I want to explain how to display hello world. So I'm going to say in Ruby to display text on the screen, we use the puts method or keyword. Puts not a method, is it? I don't remember. In bash, to do the same thing, we use we use echo or printf. And if I want to create a small program to print hello world, I can do it like this. In Ruby, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. In here, I put my code block, and I can put all the code I want over here. So I can do puts hello world, puts, this is my first program. In bash, again, 3, 3, echo, hello world, echo, this is my first program. Oh, okay. Now, how does this look like? Let's right click and preview. Again, here is the code block, and here is another code block. Another neat feature of GitHub Flavor Markdown is the ability to color code the code blocks. If you go back to the example on my website, you are going to see that the text is color coded. We can do that by specifying the language in which our code is written right after the first set of backticks. This is written in Ruby. And notice that it color coded it immediately. Now, if I zoom in over here, see how this is blue, this is black. And if I do bash here, it color codes again, and it gives it a different set of color coding to immediate, so that the user immediately realizes this is a different language. This is a very nice feature. This is how code blocks work. Now, one rule of thumb that I like to follow when using code blocks is I like to leave an empty line before and an empty line after. This keeps the formatting consistently. I have seen situations where I take my Markdown from one program to another, and not having those spaces in between creates formatting issues. So to keep formatting consistent across all the editors, I like to leave one space in between for code blocks. For inline code formatting, all we have to do is use a backtick at the beginning and a backtick in the end, and it will format that particular words or set of words as inline code, just as you see over here. And that's it. That's how you do code formatting, or code block and inline code formatting. With that said, let's go and take a look at, oh, this is interesting. Let me explain this real quick. There are times where you want to use inline code formatting, and at the same time, you want that code to appear on its own line. Here is an example of what I mean. So I'm just going to go back to cis106.com and here. And there is a section here for Git and GitHub. Yep. Nope. Actually, it is towards the end what I want to show you. Perfect. For example, in this instruction over here, I don't want this line to start over here. I want this to appear in a single line because I want the user, you, to be able to double click and copy this. But I don't want a code block in here. I just want the line to be formatted as code and to appear in its own line. These are one of those instances where using HTML is handy. I don't require you to do this. This is just preference. I do not require you to do this or to learn this. I do not require you to learn HTML at all. But if you want to, you can do a break tag, which is going to push the text to the next line. And you can do another break tag here if you want to create some spacing. And that's it. I will repeat it. I do not require the usage of HTML or for you to learn HTML for this class. Only Markdown. That's more for the curious than anything else. With that said, let's go ahead and do practice number 4. And for practice number 4, same thing. I'm going to make sure that I load my instructions over here. Step 1, open the file. In question 4, you're going to find code notes.md. Just gonna save this, and I'm also gonna delete it because I do not need it. Okay, so this is a file that contains information or notes about the Python programming language. If you look at this, the file has some Markdown formatting, but not a lot of it because it's missing code formatting and it looks ugly. If you ask me, this looks, well, ugly. Right? It's legible, but not by much. So let's make this, more friendly. Less friendlier or more friendly. Yeah, more friendly is a bigger word. Wow, my English is failing. I need some coffee. Okay, first we're gonna do code blocks. So we're gonna add triple backticks to lines 12 to 15. So let's look at lines 12 to 15. 12 to 15. It's a section that is explaining the basic data types of Python. So again, we're gonna press enter here and do 1, 2, and 3. Finally, 1, 2, and 3. And if we want it pretty, we can say that this is Python. And like I said earlier, we leave a space at the top and a single line at the bottom as well. Inline code formatting. So now we're going to inline code format all of these words over here. They are right over here, and these are explaining common data types. So how do we do this? Quite simple. Again, I'm just gonna double click on the word and press the tab and press the tilde character, and it's gonna just wrap that word um, in backticks. It's one of those nice features of VS Code. Again, boom, boom. Just double click on the word, and that's it. And then just press the backtick, and it adds it to both of them. Format another code block. Wrap lines 30 to 43 with triple backticks to create a code block. So 30 to 43. 30 to 43. That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to fix that later on. What we're going to do is that instead, let's do this. Boom. Again, Python. You don't have to do that part, but I'm doing it anyway. There you go. I'm going to make sure to fix those instructions because it's supposed to say lines 33 to something and then the other one to the other one. But again, if you do 30 to 43 and you still format it correctly, I'm not going to take any points off because the point here is to learn how to do code blocks and inline code formatting. Save your file, right click and preview. And as you can see, this is a nice looking annotated PDF document. This is really nice, really useful to study or to share. Okay. Now let's move along to question number 5. For question number 5, we're going to be working with links and images. And this is when the markdown of the syntax for markdown starts becoming just a little bit challenging, just a little bit. But trust me, if you save that cheat sheet that I showed you earlier, you will be fine. So we're going to go over slides 22 to 25, and then we're going to jump to 29, right? The ones that are between 25 and 29 are extra for those who want to go the extra mile. I'll cover them anyway, but again, 25 to 25 and then straight to 29. So we're going to do 22 to 25 first. 22. How do we use links? Well, we just follow a very simple formula. In square brackets, we put the text for the link. And then in parentheses, we put the resource or the URL that the link is going to be pointing to. For example, Google, and then the URL to Google is a search engine. Let's see this in action. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to move on to question 5, and I'm going to create a file called play.md. Google is a search engine, and I want to make Google a hyperlink. Again, open bracket, close bracket, open parenthesis, and type the hyperlink in here. And it needs to be fully qualified URL. So https google.com. And if you preview this, you're going to see that this has become a URL. I can actually click on this and it will take me to google.com. You can link to files as well. That is fine. You can link to files in your project. For example, this document is about Linux. And again, in here, I can type linux.md. And notice that this here is a link to this file over here. It works in my computer, but once I put it in somewhere else, it might not even work because it might not find the file. But this is doable. You can do this. Again, the text for the link in brackets and the resource URL in parentheses. That's it. That's how you do links. Now, how do we do images then? Well, images are also easy. is the same formula, but it starts with an exclamation mark instead. Again, text and resource, but look at the exclamation mark at the beginning. The exclamation mark at the beginning tells VS Code or any other Markdown processor that this is going to be an image. Please get the image from the resource and insert it in the document. Exclamation mark, image description, and then URL. For example, let's go and find this, for example, this URL over here, this image. Oh, this is a very long URL. This is not gonna work for us. Let me go to pexels.com. Pretty sure I'll find something here. And let's do sunshine. So I want to put this image in my document. I'm just going to get the resource for this image. So I'm going to click on opening the new tab. And here is my URL. So I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to go back to VS Code. And I'm going to say, this is the image of a sunset. I'm assuming that's a sunset. Well, it's not a sunset, so I'm just gonna say image of the sun. And another thing, when I work with images, and this is not a most, but when I work with images, I like to leave a space before and a space after as well. This rule applies for images, tables, and code blocks. It just gives me good results consistently. Exclamation mark, image of sun, and then in parentheses, my resource or URL. If you preview this file, you're gonna see that an image has been inserted in the document. If you instead make a typo in the image, for example, let's say Pexels photo 3199X, you're gonna get a broken link icon, letting you know that this URL is not correct. Every time you see this icon here, you have a broken image, you have a broken URL, check the URL and the syntax of your image, because likely you made a mistake in the syntax of your Markdown or the image doesn't exist. You can also reference local images in your project. You have to just type the name. I recommend that you put images in the same folder as you have your Markdown files because it makes them easier to work with. Here's an example of what I mean. I'm gonna download another image from Pexels. Let's see. Yeah, this one. Download image. I'm gonna name this image Sun1, and I'm gonna put it in my downloads document. Let me open this, and I'm gonna move this image to my lab1 folder. Paste. Done. Now, I want to insert that image in my document over here. So this file, play.md, is located inside question 5. So if I do sun, description of the image, and then I try to put sun1.jpg, sun1.jpg, it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because you told VS Code that inside this folder there is a file called sun1.jpg, but that is not true. The file is actually outside, and there are two ways that this can be fixed. Obviously, we can just move the image to the folder, sun1.jpg. Let's reload this, and boom, now it works. That's obvious. That's an obvious solution. Another solution would be to go out of the folder in code and then reference the image. So you can do sun, two periods, a backslash, and then the image. This here, I want you to stay away from this syntax. Once you become better at Markdown and at Linux overall, you can use this syntax, no problem. But for the time being, please make your life easy. Put your images in the same folder as your Markdown file. It's gonna be much easier for you to grasp things if you follow this advice. Okay, with that said, that's how you do images and that's how you do links. Now, I wanna go and do the what would be the most efficient way of doing this? Let me let's work on the practice and then I'm gonna explain the extra things that I said are extra. So let's go to the practice. There you go. This is page 30, practice. Step 1, open the provided files. Okay, so that's gonna be question number 5. Just gonna delete this. I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna delete this as well because it's not needed. That was done there for demonstration purposes. My environment is clean. I have a Markdown file called linux.md and I have an image too. Navigate to question 5. Here you're gonna find linux.md and Debian logo.png. Open linux.md. I already opened it. And let's add hyperlinks. So notice that I gave you here keyword and then the hyperlink that you're gonna use. So for Linux, you're gonna use this hyperlink. So I'm just gonna copy this. I'm gonna highlight Linux and I see that I have Linux here and I have Linux here. So this one is gonna be a link. And then again, this one here, Linux is typically packaged right here. This one is also gonna be a link. This is already done, so I can delete this. Now let's work with Linux kernel. This is the URL, so let's copy the URL and let's look for Linux kernel. I found Linux kernel, so I'm just gonna highlight this, surrounded by brackets, open parentheses, and put the link inside. I'm gonna delete this because it's done. And finally, well, not finally, I have another one, Linux distribution, Linux distribution, Linux distribution. Let me highlight this. There you go, found it. Boom. And then Linus Torvalds, creator of the Linux kernel. Done. Next, we're gonna work with images. Okay, so this is the URL for the Linux mascot. So I'm gonna do here, Linux mascot. Let me put it, let me make this a heading 2. Linux mascot. Its name is Tux, by the way. And here is my URL. Let's follow the rule of thumb, a space before and a space after. And then finally, the image of Debian. So let's do Debian logo. And it is this image over here, which is inside question 4. There are two ways we can do this. We can obviously type it. We can just do Debian and we can type it. Now I'm going to show you a trick. VS Code has autocomplete. If you type DE, the beginning of the file name, and then you press Control and a space bar, it will give you suggestions based on what you started typing. If you press enter here, boom, it autocompletes. I heavily recommend you to use autocomplete because it avoids typos. Save your document and preview it. And there you go. You have both of your images in your document. Okay, before I move along to question number 6, I'm gonna explain those extra little bits that I mentioned earlier. So I'm gonna go back to the beginning here. Okay, when you're working with images, again, leave the space before and after. 100% recommend you to do that because it keeps formatting clean and it avoids your file from breaking. Put the images in the same folder. Please read over these important tips that I have over here because these are things that I've learned as I work with Markdown throughout the years and as I teach this class as well. Okay, common mistakes people make with images. Improper use of Markdown syntax. The formula matters a lot here. If you get the formula wrong, if you invert the brackets or whatever, if you use the wrong characters, you are not going to preview the image. It will not work. You have a typo in the name of the file. We're going to be working in Linux later. Linux is case sensitive. Get used to case sensitivity because when you are working in a multi operating system environment, and we all are, case sensitivity matters. Make sure you enable file extensions. Things don't work well without file extensions. If images appear broken in the PDF file, check 1 and 2. You likely make a mistake on 1 and 2. If the image is too big, well, Markdown cannot resize images. You're going to have to resize it manually using a tool like your operating system or an online tool, or you can use HTML if you want to do things a little bit the hard way. Again, you can resize the image manually, or you can use HTML. And you might be wondering, how do I do it with HTML? Because I don't want to resize the image manually. Quite easy. This is the HTML version of this. See how easy it is in Markdown? There is much more syntax to remember here. Now, the advantage of using HTML is that we have the power of HTML when the power of CSS. In here, I am putting the image on a paragraph tag, which allows me to align the image, set a style, in this case, display block, and a width and a height to the image as well. Here is how that looks like. The image raw with Markdown, look how big it is. The image using just the image tag with HTML, look, they are identical, do the same thing. But then using a paragraph tag and an image tag, look how we were able to resize the image to make it look better. I only recommend this to people that understand HTML a little bit, have worked with HTML a little bit, and don't mind the extra work. I do not require this for this class at all. This is a good to know, this is a good to have, a nice to know, but I do not require you to do any HTML whatsoever. It is the same HTML with a little bit more explanation so that you know what you're typing. These are image converters that you can use and resizing tools that you can use. I've used them in the past. They work fine for me. I like to use PNGs over any other format, but you can use other formats too. It's just I get good luck with PNG formats. And yeah, that's about it. We can move along to question number 6. In question 6, we're going to be working with tables. Tables are the only part of Markdown whose syntax I believe takes a bit of time to get used to. And that is because of that is mostly because if you have never worked with data in this way, it's a little bit tricky to visually see it from right away. Let's take, for example, a table in a word processor. In this case, I'm using Google Docs, right? You want to insert a table of, let's say, I don't know, games, for example, to use the same example we have in the presentation. Normally, the first row represents what data each column contains. So let's say here we're going to put name, genre, and then let's say year release. So if you say, for example, here Doom, and the genre is FPS, and the year release is 1991, and let's say Doom 2, right? Doom 2, genre FPS, year release, 1993, and so on. Like, not sure if they were released that exact year, but you see the point. As you add more rows, the data makes sense because each column is clearly labeled at the top what it contains. So the question here is, how do we create the same structure in Markdown? Well, we need to draw the table, and then we need to enter the data, essentially. Let's take a look at the syntax for tables in Markdown. So here is a complete table in Markdown. So you have a heading at the top. We have an empty row and an empty row at the bottom, like always. And the first row is the column header, which identifies what data is in every cell for that particular column. This here, the second column, is where a lot of people get confused. What is this here? Well, that is what Markdown uses to understand that you are drawing a table. These separators here. And then each row over here becomes data. Every cell, as you can see, has a beginning of the row, a pipe, and an end, another pipe. Every row starts and ends with a pipe. See? And then you have separators, pipes in between as well. These here are the headers. These over here are the dividers. This is what builds the table. And then you have the data. That's how the render table looks like. Now let's build this in Markdown. I'm going to create a new file here, play.md. This time around, I want to work with the preview open because I want you to see as this table starts taking form. So the first thing we need to build is the header, right? Column headers. So we start with the pipe and we put here name. Then here we have genre. And then here we have year released. Done. As you can see, this is not yet a table. As of now, all we have is text. The moment we add the column dividers or separators, immediately it becomes a table. Now it's a table. Now this here is ugly to work with and it's hard to keep track of. This is where we use the Markdown or the VS Code code formatter. So you right click and you click on format document. You can also do Alt Shift F. And it will automatically pretty print, or it will prettify, it will just align everything correctly to make working with data easier. Now let's add some information here. Let's say, again, Doom 2. The genre is FPS. The year release is 1995. Boom. Now let's make it pretty. Right click, format document. And as we add more data, again, we can keep doing it the same way. And that's it. That's how you do tables. Tips for working with tables. Take advantage of format document. If the table is too big, zoom in and zoom out. That's going to help you keep the formatting going. Work with the full screen, obviously, because you are essentially drawing the table, so you don't want to split that into multiple lines. And auto format frequently. Practice number 6. Turn this data here into a table. So how do we do that? Well, you can do this the long way to practice if you want. or you can do it the short way. This is a CSV file. A CSV file is a file that is delimited or where the data is separated by a comma. You can see that we have pet name and then a comma, owner name and then a comma, pet age and then a comma, and finally appointment date. Then you can see the name of the pet and a comma again. The data here is separated by commas. So instead of having a line, you have a comma. In Excel, this would be a tab, right? Those files are called tab separated files, right? Or TSV, tab separated values. CSV are separated by commas. What we can do here is that we can replace the comma for a pipe. And the pipe is the character that is on top of the enter key in your keyboard. So if we go back to the keyboard here, let's see if we can see it. This is the pipe. See if we can have the other one right here. This here is the pipe. This character right over here. To access that character, you press Shift and then this key. So we're gonna do Control F, and in this file, we wanna replace every comma for a pipe, and then tab. However, you're gonna notice something. We still don't have a table because we're missing two things. First, we're missing the beginning of our table, the beginning pipe, the ending pipe, and finally, we're missing the separators. So let's add the begin and end pipe. So at the beginning of the line, here is something that you can do. This is called multi-line editing. If you press and hold the control and the shift key of your keyboard, again, the control and the shift key of the keyboard, this is in Windows, by the way, Google it for Mac, and you, oh, sorry, oh, there you go, control, shift, and alt, my apologies, control, shift, and alt, those three keys, control, shift, and alt, the left ones, and then you use the arrow key down. You can select multiple lines and then edit them at the same time. See? Which is pretty cool. We can also do this manually. Pipe, 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 and so on until you are done. Okay. Once you add, oops, sorry, that was my bad. Let's replay this again. Done. And I'm gonna do the multi-line edit over here. Boom. I'm gonna put the insertion point at the end of this line, and again I'm gonna do multi-line edit in the same way. Control, Alt, Shift, and then the arrow key down. Space and a pipe. We're getting there, but we are not done yet. We're still missing the separators. So I'm gonna press Enter to insert a new line here and do pipe 1, 2, 3, first column. 1, 2, 3, second column. 1, 2, 3, fourth column. 1, 2, 3, fifth column. Now this looks like a proper table. Next, I'm gonna pretty print this, just format document, so that it is easy for me to visually see and edit this data later. Save, and you're done. Let me just save this file and delete it because I don't need it anymore. Okay, align the table and preview, and we're done. With that, I am going to explain now the challenge question, or question number 7. In question 7, you're going to demonstrate your understanding of Markdown by creating a resume. Here is the scenario. Your friend John Doe has asked you to create a one-page resume for him. He has provided you all of his information in a text file and included a profile picture. Since you just learned Markdown, you decided to use Markdown and then export the file as PDF for John. So what are you going to do here? Navigate to the question 7 folder. There you're going to find info.txt, resume.png, and johndoe.jpg. Okay, let's go take a look at that real quick. Question 7. Here we have info.txt. This is John Doe's information. Here is John Doe profile picture, and here is the resume. Now, this here, resume.png, this is a preview example of your finished work. These are tables over here. As you can see, we have different levels of headings here. We are using pretty much every single Markdown syntax except, I believe, links. I don't think we included any links here. We're using pretty much every Markdown syntax that we learned. Rename info.txt to resume.md. So here, info.txt, rename resume.md. Good. Format the resume using Markdown. Use heading for different section, bulleted list when needed, bold and italic when needed, add the image of John Doe at the top, and use this reference image to guide your formatting. VS Code preview of resume.png. So click here. This should download a file. This file is a preview from VS Code. Yep, a preview from VS Code when you have added all the formatting that I mentioned here, right? You can use this image to compare yours to mine. Preview your file using Markdown, convert it to PDF, and that's about it. As long as your image, your final PDF, and your Markdown file contain all the elements that we discussed here. Again, links are not included in the challenge because I didn't put anything to link into there, so that's perfectly fine. You should be fine. Compare your resume.md to the preview that you saw. Try to match it as close as possible. Now, when you are done, I'm just gonna do something here real quick. Let me just do some formatting here. I don't know. I'm just gonna do some random formatting. And the reason why I'm doing this is just so that I can show you what you are gonna do after you're done. Okay, so let's say that I'm done formatting this document. It already looks the way that it is supposed to look like. I'm gonna right click and I'm going to export it to PDF. Okay, now that I have exported the file to PDF, I'm gonna confirm that the file has been converted to PDF here. Perfect, it has been converted to PDF and it loads. Now you are ready to start your submission. How are you going to submit this file? Well, here is the thing. In Blackboard, I need the URL to the GitHub repository where you're going to upload this file. And I need the PDF file of the resume file you created. Those are the things that you're going to give me in URL. However, notice that I said that I need the GitHub URL of your repository. Now, this is where we start tracking our work. So I need you to create a GitHub account. You can use your PCCC email address, which I recommend because you can get discount if you want to use the GitHub Pro for students, then you can do that. Or you can use your personal email address, it's fine. If you already have a GitHub account, then you can use that as well. But create a GitHub account. Click over here, click on sign up, fill in all the information there, just like signing up for any other website that you would do. There is nothing challenging here. I'm gonna sign in to my GitHub account now. I thought I have my GitHub account signed in. I guess I don't. There we go. So now we're going to create a repository. You can create a repository by clicking on the create repository icon here or the plus icon at the top here. New repository. The name for this repository is going to be the name of the class, which is CIS 106. All lowercase, please. All lowercase. CIS 106. This is going to be public because I need to be able to see your repository. And then click on create repository. Okay, now that we created our repository, we need to upload files to this repository. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go to your documents folder. Make sure that in VS Code you have saved all of your work. So click on File, Save All. You can close VS Code for now. You're going to right click on Lab 1 and you're going to compress it as a zip file. This is done the same way in Mac. Once you have compressed Lab 1 as a zip file, you're going to come to VS Code and you're going to click on Upload an existing file. Choose your file, sorry, GitHub, not VS Code. Documents, select your zip file and click on Open. Click on Commit Changes. Don't know what that was all about. Okay, now we're going to upload here the PDF file and the Markdown file. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to add file, upload files. Choose your files and you're going to go to Lab 1, Question 7, and you're going to select all of these files. Click on Open and then Commit Changes. Click on resume.md. You are going to give me this URL over here. You are going to give me this URL over here to this file in Blackboard. So on Blackboard, you're going to navigate to Lab 1 submission, and there you're going to type this URL, copy and paste it. It can be in a comment or it can be as a text submission, and you're going to upload the resume.pdf file of your challenge question 7. Those two things. Let's go back over here. As you can see, I have it right over here. How I am going to grade this for you. I'm going to go to your GitHub repository and I'm going to open the file. I'm going to download the zip file. I'm going to check that you did all the practice, or at least that you follow along. You know, it doesn't need to be 100%, but I am very lenient. There are things that I overlook. Each question is 10 points. 1 to 6, 10 points, that's 60 points. I'm going to go there and I'm going to check that you completed each and every one of the questions. Then I'm going to check that you did the resume.md file. I'm going to check, I'm going to go and read the file, look at the Markdown syntax, look at the PDF file and compare it. If you tick all the boxes, if you did all of the formatting correctly, if everything looks the way it's supposed to look, you get your 40 points and that's your 100 points. And that's about it. If I cannot find your GitHub repository, but I have a PDF file, you are going to be awarded, well, effort grade. Because if I don't get everything that I mentioned over here in your submission, I cannot give you the necessary points. Regarding late submissions, every lab you get 10 days to complete. After 10 days, 20 points are lost automatically for late submission. And after a next period of time, the lab is closed forever. Your goal is to finish each and every one of the labs within the 10 days that you were awarded to complete the lab. Regarding the final exam, you will be required to use Markdown during your exam, and your exam is in person. You can use your cheat sheet. You can bring that Markdown cheat sheet to your final exam. That's not a problem. If you have any questions, you know where to reach me, Slack me, and we'll be in touch. Take care.